Hey, Mija. This is Diana, and I'm Ana Rosa. And this is Mija, Let Me Tell You. It's space for growing, healing, and figuring life out as first generation Mexican immigrants.
Hola a todos. This is part 2 of episode 9. And in our previous episode, we started talking about the high school experience. And we continue to talk about the high school experience here, but in a broader subject that we encountered. And we just want you to feel empowered by the experiences that you will be living, whether it be in education or out of education, in our job, looking for advancement, that if you have to be proactive, you have to get out there and value your work, value yourself, because you're fully capable of doing anything you put yourself into. And in our examples, in our stories, we want to transmit that, you know, if we were able to do it, you're able to do it. What makes us any more special?
Right.
You know, of course, we're special. Don't get us wrong, in our own way. But everyone's special in their own way. And you have the skills and abilities to make that happen. So, you know, as Mija, let me tell you, hosts, we love sharing our experiences with you, our community, because we know that we're not the only ones going through that. And we're not going to be the last, or we're not going to be we weren't the first ones either. But we want to transmit that knowledge that we've gained, or at least to create some commonality, you know, to say, you know, I can relate to Diana, who started high school in her first day, and she was nervous and tenía novio en la high school, and she made it, she graduated, you know, just an example. But enjoy our podcast. And so I remember, you know, thinking, well, you know, how I'm going to pay for college. And I started applying for different scholarships. And then one day, Señor Vizcaíno trajo un little booklet, porque back in the day, el internet existía, but it wasn't as, you know, tan profundo.
Front and center.
Acá como ahorita. And me dio un booklet, y era the Gates Millennium Scholarship. And he presented me the booklet. He's like, Diana, I think you should apply to this scholarship. And I was like, I will apply for the scholarship.
Like,
because
why not? Why not?
Why not? Because obviously anything can happen. And you know, I had good grades. I had AP classes. I took Hancock College classes while they were offered, and you know, to us at the high school. And I remember applying, and it wasn't easy. It took a lot. It was like essays.
I think it was like 8 or 10 essays.
8 or 10 essays, and there was two recommenders or something like that. There was like a series of persons who had to write a letter of recommendation and their own statement for you as part of the application. And I remember, okay, like, and then back in the day, we didn't have a computer en la casa. So I would work in the library ahí in the library, whether it be the public library in Buellton. Or the library in the high school, and I would be working on it. And I remember turning it in, y pues que le eché la bendición a la application and send it away, you know. It was online, you know. And then I remember sending it, and I was like, pues, if it's gonna be, it's gonna be. It's meant to be. And then later on, received, you're a finalist, because I think there was 2 rounds. And
really?
There was 2 rounds, and then they told me you made it the first round. I was like, ay, pues ya avanzamos para otro. And then I was like, pues igual lo encomiendo en las manos de Dios, and que sea lo que Dios quiera. And then I remember getting, congratulations, you've received the Gates Millennium Scholarship. And for us, my family, when we found out, we were like, how is this possible? This is
because it's a full ride.
It's a full ride scholarship.
It's a full ride anywhere, up until grad school too, for certain
programs.
Subjects,
And then I remember, we didn't know how meaningful it was, because I mean it was meaningful to get it. But later on, I found out this is like not just in California.
It's a big deal.
This is a big deal. It's throughout
the country,
the
right?
country, and it's competitive. And for us, it was like, wow, like we don't have to pay for college.
Yeah.
And that made it even like sweeter, right? Because you're like, I all my hard work through high school, quemándome las pestañas when everybody was over there partying, you know,
yendo
los bailes, and I'm here like reading and not going to parties because I had to do my homework. And créame, no nos faltaban ganas de estar allí. Sí. Pero we knew that we had to put in the work to get to where we want it to be.
Yes.
And it's not easy because when you're young, you want to be doing what everybody's doing, you know, all the fun stuff. And we talked about it in a previous episode. We still went to Mexico and we still had to do our homework. Yes. And we were able to balance that, you know, the homework and, you know, yes, we had fun. Don't get me wrong. We went to las movies, recuerden. Ahí va Ana también,
sí,
a
las
movies.
En México,
a los tacos de allí, Copetechuy, y a los tacos del Tepehuaje. Yeah. We had our fun. But we knew how to balance it. And we had priorities too. Yes. And it wasn't easy because you had to make, you know, like those memes where like there's like the easy road and there's a bunch of people and then there's like uno que otro allí. Sí. We were the uno que otros. And it was hard because, créeme, we wanted to be in La Cuisillos aquí en cuando venían en Santa María or La Recodo and, you know, jaripeos and you just had to make that decision.
Yes. And I feel like we knew that it was all going to be worth it, you know, like we knew that it was a sacrifice in the moment, but it was going to be worth it. And I feel like it has been worth it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We reached our goals, like personal and, you know, with our husbands and, you know, our families and, you know, era como la semillita que estamos sembrando. Sí. Y tenías la fe que iba a brotar la semilla, aunque lo veías lejos, you know, because you saw it far away. You're like, ay, como quisiera ir, you know, and of course be with friends and of course be doing this, but I want this. I want to go to college and I know it's 4 years, you know, if you're in your freshman year in high school, you're like looking at it 4 years till I graduate and then another 4 years till I graduate from my bachelor's and both of us have our master's degree.
Yeah.
But, you know, the interesting thing, you know, when lightning, you know, what are the chances that lightning strikes twice?
Right.
And then Ana, tell them your experience as a Gates Millennium Scholar.
Yes. So I guess I didn't really realize the story behind it and how I got to you, but because of that story, because of those steps that had been taken, that's how it, you know, I knew about it as well. And I remember, like applying. We're like, well, we'll give it a go. You know, also trying to balance, like trying to take those difficult classes, AP classes, trying to balance extracurricular activities and volunteer work. And I was like, I feel like, why not? Why not? You know, why not? The worst I can say is no. And, you know, at least we tried kind of thing. And I remember applying for it. And those, like I said, I think it was like 8 to 10 essays. And it was a very competitive scholarship. And, you know, I would spend, you know, months in preparation for those essays and just trying to be able to express myself the way I wanted to express myself. And I remember I applied and like I was like, you know, we'll see how it goes. And I think either Señor Vizcaíno or Señor González were also one of my recommenders. And I forget who else was the other one. I don't remember. But I remember also receiving that big envelope and it said, "Congratulations, you're a Gates Millennium Scholar." And I remember crying because I was just in disbelief because you're right. Like you see all the work, all the hours you've put into going to college or getting prepared to go to college, and then having your college career be paid for is like, there's no words to describe that, because you know that all the sacrifice you've made is you're seeing the fruits of your labor, I guess. And I remember thinking like, okay, like maybe I am, you know, maybe this is gonna work out. Maybe me going to UCLA and with this scholarship, like things are gonna work out. Like I said, because you do start feeling that imposter syndrome. Is it gonna work out? Is it gonna? Am I gonna do okay? Like, but I remember thinking it was like really exciting. And I think the same year that I got it, there was another student. I got it at the high school también. So there was 2 people.
Wow, that's awesome.
From San Ynez High School that got it my year.
That's great.
Yeah. So you were kind of the trailblazer, though.
Well, thanks to Señor Vizcaíno.
Yeah.
I'm always going to be grateful to Señor Vizcaíno, Señor Gonzalez, and you know, Miss Babcock, you know, and then Miss Rode. I really loved art.
Art.
And that was my haven, you know, like in the midst of all the stress of school.
Yeah.
I really look forward to art class. You know, doing the chalk festival out there at the Santa Ynez High School. I loved, like, I lived for the chalk festival because you had to, you know, get out of class, obviously, but you were drawing on the floor and you made it a whole experience. You were tired at the end of the day, like nobody's business, but you had fun, and I that was my outlet. Yeah. The art.
The art. Yeah. And I remember for the chalk festival too, didn't you have to get like a vendor?
Yeah, like
or
a
like
sponsor.
A sponsor?
Yes, sponsor. Yeah.
So it kind of involved the community too. And I remember for art, I think you guys had like a art, like an auction or something. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember. An AP art.
AP art.
AP art, we had an auction and we fundraised. We fundraised by selling our own art. And I remember that was my first experience in an auction. I never knew what an auction was, and you know, yo me dibujé ahí el
I think you
Guerrero Azteca, right? Because obviously representing, okay, nuestras raíces. Sí. Era un Guerrero Azteca y, you know, fuerte, and you know, and thanks to the auction, we were able to go to New York, and that was something.
It was your first time.
It was my first time getting
outside of California, within the, you know, US.
Yeah, and without my parents.
Without your parents, yeah.
And I was afraid of flying. So that was an experience. But I really also wanted to go to New York because I really wanted to see Ground Zero, like what was left. To me, the 8th grade, I was in 8th grade when 9/11 happened. And se me quedó in my mind. Yeah. You know, it was very impactful. I still remember that day, like looking at the TV, estamos viendo Despierta America or something like that. Sí. And then they're just showing buildings, you know, and we're like, well, maybe there's a fire, and you didn't know what was going on until you knew what was going on. And then in my English class in Haneda, they had it on the whole day. Really? And I remember we were doing journaling. And I remember out of that experience, I did a lot of poems. For me, it was a lot of poems, writing about sentimientos and just kind of processing what was going on in the world. Like, I couldn't believe that could happen in the world. Yeah. And that had a great impact. So when we went to, we were going to be going to AP Art, you're going to go to New York. One of the stops was like a concert hall right across with Ground Zero. And I really, you know, you had the choice to go different places. And when they said, oh, it's really near like Ground Zero, I wanted to go. And I had the opportunity when we were walking towards the concert hall that, you know, where Ground Zero was. It was empty. You know, obviously it had been years after. 4 years or 5 years after, so there was no rubble or anything left, and they hadn't built any memorial, so it was just kind of empty. And the concert hall was right across, and I just it was an open glass, you know, it was a glass ceiling concert hall, and I remember just looking up and saying, what having this windows witnessed, you know, and all those people who were there and who passed away and who were helpful and who were able to save others, and you know, and so that experience was very meaningful in different layers. One, first field trip outside of California by yourself and with your teachers and some of the students, afraid of flying. We're going to New York, you know, and just experiencing New York and being out there in the big city, and actually seeing smoke coming out of the alcantarillas, you know.
The subway, is it subways?
I don't even know where the smoke comes from, but there was like, oh wow, what is that? And you know, it's just the big skyscrapers, but obviously it was focused on, we had fun, but it was very focused on visiting art galleries, and because that was art class, right? Art class, so but we did have some fun. We went to some Broadway shows, and we went to the concert. We ate in certain restaurants that I never thought I was going to be eating at. So that was an experience. High school, I never traveled, you know, abroad or anything in college, but that was like a mini version of traveling abroad, but not really abroad, but within the United States.
Yeah.
So that was
like a fun experience. Yeah.
It was really fun. I still remember that day.
Yes. I remember like AP Euro, we had like spring break trips that people would take. I think the year I was in AP Euro, I think they might have gone to Greece or something. But again, it was kind of like, I don't know anyone else who's, I'm not too close with anyone else that's going. So I was like, I'm not going.
I'm staying home.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I studied abroad when I was in college, and that's, in a different episode, we can talk more about that. But I think in high school, I was still pretty like not wanting to leave my mom's side or my parents' side, I did want to talk about like, there was one, like we've been talking about like imposter syndrome and us being in these like AP classes, honors classes, and feeling like, do we even belong here, right? Because we don't see people that look like us. Our friends aren't taking these classes. Like, we find ourselves by ourselves sometimes, in these classes. And I remember I was in, I forgot what grade it was, maybe my second year in high school, so sophomore. And I remember I was taking like whatever the science was. And I remember thinking like, this is like really easy for me. Like, no, it was freshman year. No, take that back. It was freshman year. It was like the
physical science class or something.
It was, I forgot what it's
Life
called. Like
science.
Maybe Frosh Core, they called Frosh Core science. And I remember thinking like, this is really easy. Like, this is like a little too easy for me. Like I feel like I can challenge myself more, which honestly, looking back as a freshman, I was like, dang, okay, like
that's pretty cool, because usually you don't want to challenge yourself. You want to take the easy route out. You want to get the
easy A, But I was like, this is too easy for me. So I went to, to talk to the counselors and stuff. I told the counselor I had at the time, I was like, hey, like this is a little too easy for me. Is it possible to do, the second level of what would, because either students took that science class or they would take physics. And I was like, I'm feeling like this science class is a little too easy for me. I think I can challenge myself. And I brought it up to them, and they said, are you sure you want to do the harder class? And I'm like, yes, I'm sure I want to take the harder class. They said, because a lot of people are failing, and I don't know if you should take it. And for me, like at the time I was like, yeah, I want to take it. Like, why would I not take a class that I want to challenge myself in? But the more I've reflected on it, I've also realized, like, looking back at this conversation I had with this guidance counselor, is like, why would she think that I couldn't handle that class? You know what I mean? It makes me think like, what would make her think that I couldn't challenge myself? Like, there's plenty of other, white students in this class. And when I was in this class, I think I was the only Hispanic student when I ended up changing to physics. And I remember thinking like, do they ask this same question to my white peers? Like, if they're sure they want to take this class? And so as much as we had really great teachers at the high school, I did have an experience that I feel like rubbed me the wrong way looking back at it after reflecting, where it's like, why would they question my ability to take a harder class?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, totally. It's like, I can do it too.
I can.
Yeah, I am capable of doing the same level of work as anyone else.
Yes.
And maybe at the moment you didn't see it as profoundly as you're just sharing.
Yeah.
But it does hit a chord, right? Like, just me hearing you talk is like, I wouldn't question a student's ability,
right?
Because who am I to do that? If that student has the grit, and that's a big part, because you're willing to put in the work. And obviously there is, it's work, right?
Yes.
It didn't come easy to you to be in that class,
right.
But you were willing to put on the work to be successful in that class and be able to challenge yourself, where someone else would be like, oh, ECA, and I am moving on.
Yes.
But you really saw it came from you.
Yes.
That the need to challenge yourself. So
Yes.
that showed motivation. It showed that you are willing to put in the work. So it is tough to hear that it exists. I mean, it
does
just
exist,
it didn't exist just then. It happens to others.
There's been several, I'm sure there's been other times where.
And so what can we learn from that?
Right.
Right. As a student, if someone tells me no, you advocate for yourself. Because you advocate for yourself and you were able to get into the class and you show them that you can make it.
And
back it up with actions. It's not just talk the talk, and you gotta walk the walk too.
Yeah. And I feel like I did. They tried to stop me from taking this class, and I was like, no, I want to take it, and I took it. And the way I showed them that I could do it was by getting an A in the class. It took a lot of work, and yes, it was more challenging than if I had stayed in the course that I thought was not as challenging for me. So you're right. Like my way of showing them was like, hey, like,
check it out.
Check my grade. There you go. Yeah, don't place limitations on someone without giving them a chance. Like, okay, if it was too hard, let me fail then. Like I was trying to take my education into my own hands in a way.
And that's meaningful.
Yeah.
And one thing that our parents, even though they didn't know how how high school worked, because they didn't go to high school here, and they didn't know how college worked, they would always be in the meetings.
They did.
And I remember, and that kind of speaks to like the confidence that they had, like, okay, like we're gonna go. We don't know half of the stuff that maybe they're gonna mention
they understood
as much as what that process entailed, but they made it their point to be present. And they did it for all of us. And they did it for all of us. Yes. And I think that motivated us as well to be like, okay, mis parents vienen cansados de trabajar.
They're showing up for us.
No comieron nada en la casa, un taquito ahí o una manzanita de córrele. Sí. Pero they were there for all of us in the high school. And I think like that was valuable. I still remember one day, I don't know what grade I was in, pero back in the day, they had the migrant program in the San Ynez Valley. Y creo que, I don't know if obviously, we don't have it anymore. At least I haven't heard of the migrant program around. Correct me if I'm wrong, if there is the migrant program in the San Ynez Valley. But I remember going to a meeting and feeling so bad. Because why did I feel so bad? Because my parents were the only ones present in the meeting. So that they had the BXP experience, don't get me wrong. And they were able to be focused just on them. Pero también estas personas took their time out of their day. They arranged their schedule. Obviously, we work in the schools. We know we have to shift things around and to be present. And my parents, I remember they had tenían como aperitivos y todo, welcoming. Sí. And then había las sillas ahí acomodadas, and we were there. My parents and myself and my siblings. I think you were there. And we were just like, pues no, nadie más va a venir. Yo pienso, you can start the meeting. And they started the meeting, and my parents were the VIPs, right? Obviously. Pero también me dio profundo sentimiento. A lot of my heart felt heavy for what was missed in that meeting. Obviously, people have their jobs, they get paid for being there, but they were there, they made their time. But us as a community being like, I honor you that time. I honor you the fact that you're setting this space for information for us.
To support us, yeah.
And I think that was powerful in that. And that they saw that we were, the motivation of my parents and seeing, well, nobody else's parents are here, but we are here. And, and they were always present. And I think that helped motivate us even more in doing the work. And going back to the part, I've always heard students say, well, my counselor didn't say this. My counselor never called me out. My counselor, and it's like, if you really want something, you're going to seek that help. Yeah. And sometimes we don't have those tools to seek and advocate for ourselves, which I can understand why I would hold back and not go, because I don't know. Sometimes we were taught that, maybe we're expecting them to call us out. But I remember I wasn't seeked out either, but I remember making appointments. Okay, how are my grades? I didn't even know if I was going to college. I didn't know how. And obviously I didn't ask my counselor because it wasn't my counselor, supported me, but there was other role models like Señor Vizcaíno, Señor González, Arcelia, who were key players in that application process. But I did go check in with my counselor to see, okay. And I remember my mom having meetings like, okay, is she ready for college? Is she doing this? But there was pieces that were missing in that transaction. And I remember, and if anything, it's like there were announcements. There was announcements, clear announcements in the speakerphones. And then, so if you had that motivation, you would listen in. And obviously it meant maybe missing lunch with your friends to go to a meeting, hola meeting, or if you're in part of another another club, then you would go to. Of course, it's not fun. It's business. It's more work. You sometimes came out of that meeting with work because you had events going on. But it was like, okay, like you picked and you listened to what was your priority. And it's there's a whole process for everyone, but there's a part of responsibility that we have to take on. It's like, okay, no me están diciendo, bueno, pues yo voy a ir,
Being proactive.
Yeah, being proactive, porque pues that's how life works. Sometimes things won't come our way. Ojalá que todo viniera para acá, saliera del cielo y qué bueno sería. Like, pero las cosas no funcionan así. You have to seek that.
Yeah.
I don't know what was your experience.
No, 100%. Even like I remember the local scholarships. They announced it multiple times that there was, they had like I think a folder of local scholarships. That were available to students, but you did have to put work in. You had to write different essays for each one, and you had to get your academic grades and all the things. But I remember like some people like, how did you even know about that? I'm like,
I was paying attention.
There's been multiple announcements, and I feel like Ola also did a great job of kind of propagating the news, or like any announcements. They would also try to tell us about it. And so it's definitely, you have to be proactive about it, and you have to put in the work for it, because you're right, it doesn't come it doesn't just land on your...
No, and especially for us that we don't know what we're even looking out for.
Right.
Like when you don't know what to expect, then you're just gonna have to be keen to what's around you and ask questions.
Yes.
Because obviously, I was the first person in my family, had no idea. I just knew I was gonna go to college. Magically iba a aparecer ahí el college, yo pienso. But I just knew I had to do what I had to do. I knew that I had to focus. But at the same time, like I did pay attention. I was like, okay, announcements, sometimes announcements about something that irrelevant, obviously. Right. But there were sometimes, especially the senior year, I paid extra attention. Yes. Especially like I would go and ask, like, is there more scholarships? Oh, well, we have this like file cabinet ahí.
It was a file
cabinet. And you would
go
and look through it. And obviously you went through it like during your like nutrition, your lunch, or even after school, ahí antes de que llegara el bus ahí, because we took the bus home.
Yeah.
And I understand, like, when you don't know what you're missing, you don't know what to look for. Pero because you don't know what to look for, that's when you ask. And I think that's a valuable lesson that we learned. Just ask.
Yes.
Or, surround yourself with people who will help you too.
Yes.
With the resources.
Yeah. Or find someone on campus that's a teacher.
And you
trust, and they can guide you to wherever person that can give you that information.
Yeah, because they don't always have the answers, but they can point you to the right direction. And sometimes it's shyness, right? I've been there. I'm shy. Yes. And I tell my students at the college, I know I talk a lot. And believe it or not, there was a point where I was like shy. Like I wouldn't speak out, and I would like to hide in the back of the classroom so that I could be invisible so the teacher wouldn't call on me. Yeah, that was me. I was quiet. And not that I'm an outgoing person, I'm an introvert, but I've learned certain skills that have helped me along the way to navigate certain systems. And I know that everybody's capable of doing that.
Yes. Yeah. And I know sometimes people will, like, I remember hearing like, oh, you got this scholarship. You're so lucky. And it's like, yes, I'm lucky, but also I put in a lot of work into building my resume and trying to build up my high school experience so that I could prove that I deserve this scholarship in a way, you know? there is, there's luck, but also hard work. It is hard work to.
It is. It is. And I think we put something out, like one of the quotes que dice, no es suerte, and it had like sticky notes, of what the reasons are. Your daily, your motivation, your consistency, y todo eso. And that applies to other aspects of our life, not just education, and your personal goals and your financial goals.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And going back to also Señor González or Señor González or Señor Vizcaíno too. They told me about a leadership conference called the Chicano Latino Youth Leadership Project, CLYLP. Shout out CLYLP.
Shout out.
And I remember, I think it was Señor González that recommended that I apply to it. And it was for Chicano Latino youth in Sacramento. And they would pay for your stay. Like you would stay in Sacramento State.
Wow.
And like all your meals were paid for. Like they paid for my transportation from Buellton to Sacramento, like the Amtrak. I remember taking the Amtrak, and I think it was like the first time I took the Amtrak.
You're like,
too.
wow, aquí en el,
yes.
en el trenecito ahí.
And I guess that was my first trip away from my parents in California, but it was away from my parents. And I remember it was a really memorable experience for me. It was my junior year of high school, and you're just surrounded by people that look like you, that have similar backgrounds, that
Wonderful.
have similar experiences to you. And I remember it was a week-long leadership conference about the walkout movements in LA. You learn all about these Chicano movements that you don't learn about in school, right?
Wow, that's powerful.
Yes,
powerful.
So you start realizing the role that Chicanos basically being people from Latin America that grow up here, and the role they play in our country and in our state history.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it was really amazing just to hear a lot of speakers talk about our role in our country and how important we are, because a lot of the times in this country we don't hear that as much, and we do play such an important role in the state and our country. And we had cheers like si se puede, we would chant all the time, and then we had the cheers that uplifting cheers. Yeah. I'm trying to remember, there was another one where it's the power of the people is strong and it won't stop, saying that we have more power in our hands than we give ourselves credit for. And I remember seeing that the president at the time was I forgot what her name is, but it was a woman, and she looked like us, she looked like us. And I remember thinking wow, she's the president of this organization, I can do stuff like that, I can see myself doing something similar. Or I think it demonstrated the power of representation in our community. And I remember coming back senior year and just feeling really motivated to apply for colleges and to pass on the knowledge I learned. But I remember reflecting on it, and it was the first time that I saw and I heard speakers of higher education or higher that held high positions that looked like me. Because you look around, and sometimes a lot of the political figures or what's it called, city officials and stuff, they don't look like us, and don't have our cultural background, or can't relate to our immigrant experience. But going there, and I was wow, representation matters. And I think it pushed me to kind of get out of my comfort zone and say, sometimes I'm going to be the only one in a room that looks like me, but I know that'll open a door for the next person,
totally.
Hopefully it will motivate someone else to continue the path.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And Rasa College Days did that for me. At UCSB. It was like a conference, and for the first time we sat in the big Campbell Hall, like the Campbell.
And did you go during high school?
Yeah,
Oh,
we
it was
went
during
to
high
high
school?
school. They took us,
Oh,
and there was controversy in this Raza College Day because in one of the conferences they gave us some shirts que decía brown and proud, and in the high school that caused a little revuelo. A little revuelito because they had us take it off, but
really?
and because it was causing, apparently it was too controversial. And one of the times we did a walkout too. We walked out.
I remember
Because
that.
see, we walked out with our la bandera de Ola, and we wore white, and we were protesting
Yes.
what was going on, and um, it was powerful to do that. But when we went to Raza College Day, to go back to that, it was the first time that I saw myself at UCSB, and that was the first university I went to see. And Campbell Hall is like a big hall, and you saw students from different places all come together, and then you were greeted by el pan dulce, el mariachi, and you were like, "Ay, aquí."
Felt welcome.
You felt welcome.
Yes.
And then, they had breakout sessions, and so you would go to smaller rooms, and you got to pick where to go, and you were like, "Wow, is this what college is about?"
Yeah.
And it gives me chills,
I got
just
chills too.
just thinking of like looking around and saying, well, it's not that bad, it's bigger, obviously, than Santa Ynez, the high school. But, you saw yourself around and be like, I see myself here.
Yes.
And I think that speaks to those experiences. So if you're a student in high school, junior high, open yourself to the opportunity. I know it's not easy to go out of town, away from your parents for days. But you'll find that it's life-changing.
Yes, and you do belong in those spaces. As much as, the narrative says otherwise, you have as much right to be there and you do belong there as anyone else. Don't let anyone else tell you that a class is too hard for you, or that, make you question your abilities. Just keep that in mind, because I know it's hard, especially when, like we've mentioned, there's spaces where you might be the only person of your own of your cultural background, and the only person that looks like you. So definitely remember that you belong in those spaces, and don't be afraid to be loud and proud is what I say.
Yes. Y si ellos pueden, nosotros también. And we have our ancestors, to back us up for all the knowledge, todo su conocimiento, todo su wisdom. And even, not going so far as ancestors, nuestros abuelitos, nuestros papás, they have wisdom, and they pass it on to us. And so, y tenemos ese coraje, ese courage to go and do things, and sometimes it means getting out of our comfort zone. And it happened to us. We got, believe me, out of our comfort zone.
Yes.
Like, ¿qué estoy haciendo aquí? But I'm here, and I'm afraid, but I'm here. And then
you're showing up. You're showing up. Yes. Yeah. I love that. I love that. And because it's so true. Like, even just like we've mentioned, like our parents, the pure idea of them leaving their country and leaving their parents and their loved ones and stepping out of their comfort zone to come to a country they know nothing about. They don't know the language, but they're here to give us, their kids, the opportunities they never had, and they're showing up for us. Why not show up for them?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's powerful.
Yes. So that concludes the end of this episode. We've really enjoyed just sharing our experience and talking about what we kind of went throughout our high school experience and what molded us and shaped us. We hope that you can relate in some way and feel motivated to be you and to take up space. And feel free to share your stories as well. If you had any experiences similar to ours that you would like to share, we'd love to hear your stories. And because I think, like Diana has mentioned before, it really brings us together knowing like, hey, I had a similar experience like that. It makes us feel like we're not alone. And I think that's important to our community too. So yeah, feel free to share your stories. And again, thank you for listening. We are beyond appreciative and thankful for all of your support. And Again, follow us on social media or share our videos if you feel so inclined to do so. And we'll see you again next Wednesday for our next episode. Con gratitud, this is Mija, let me tell you.